Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of you had requested me to talk directly to Rituraj, the founder and CEO of Growpital, for a lot of questions you had regarding the affidavit which Growpital has requested the investors to submit. So I did have a dialogue with him on the 25th of Jan 2026. I have the recording with me. However, Rituraj bound me by the honor of my word that I must not publish that dialogue on a public forum as per the advice of his legal team. He, however, agreed that I could treat the interaction with him as an informal, personal interaction and summarize the contents from there and publish the same to all of you on a public forum. So I'll honor Rituraj's wishes and do the next best thing of summarizing the interactions with him, here keeping the answers as far as possible exactly the same as I got them from Rituraj. I know you would love to hear the answers directly from the horse's mouth, but here we are. I use an AI tool to generate a transcript of his answers, so it'll be largely what I got from him, but there are places where I had to format it in my own words to make it presentable. So here goes. The first question I asked him was the following. Rituraj, please tell us, to what purpose are you asking the partners to fill this affidavit, specifically because there is no order from either SAT or SEBI to provide this kind of information? The answer I got was like this. So as it was mentioned in the mailer itself that this is the action taken by us just to save time. So to be very clear from the first step itself, it is not an obligation at this point of time. It is not required at this point of time. It is not an obligation. But again, to be very clear, it will be a compulsion to submit the affidavit later. When the time comes, we can save the time in collection of these affidavits because there are multiple partners. It will definitely take time, right? So as it has been already mentioned in the mail that I'm collecting these affidavits just to save time. That's the only purpose here. And I think almost all the partners are aware of this fact as well. And in October 2024, SAT has already given an order to submit a proposal of the release of the frozen funds in the bank accounts, right? So for that release, one affidavit will be required. So in a sense, Rituraj asserted that eventually an affidavit will be required, so this is an early preparation. The next question from me was, some partners have complained that they have not received the email sent by Growpital requesting for the affidavit. The reasons could be many, as for example, some might have discontinued with that email and so forth. What should those partners do? As for example, do you have some email address where they could write to inform you that they haven't received the said email or any other mechanism? The answer was the following. No, I don't think any email should be required. It's like if partners are complaining and they are accessible to you or any other partner, if someone received it, they can share it. It's a simple process there. Document is generic template itself and same for all. So effectively, Rituraj is stating that if you don't have the email, Growpital cannot help you. Borrow the affidavit template from some partner you know who has received it. Next question from me was, some partners are currently outside India or who are unable to have the affidavit notarized. What should they do? The answer was that an affidavit which is to be submitted in courts has to be notarized. That's a rule. Okay, so if they're outside, they can do it afterwards or whenever they get the time or whenever the feasibility comes in. At this point of time, as I've already told you, that it is not a compulsion right now. When the order comes, then it will be given a timeline and what has to be done according to the directive that will be given. We can figure out at that point of time, that will not be a problem. But for the affidavit to be hold truthful in the court of law, it has to be notarized and signed there on a stamp paper. So Rituraj is telling that if you're outside the country, don't panic just yet. You have time to submit the affidavit till the order comes out from SAT, which might take some time. But eventually you have to submit the affidavit. There is no way out. So start thinking and preparing how you will manage the situation either via your friends or you personally coming down to India and so forth. The next question from me was, and this is a long one, amongst other things, the affidavit template that Growpital has sent out contains the section 3, namely nature of association and governance, and contains the following line, I quote, loss responsibility in brackets clause 2.6. Any losses or loss of capital were to be met by the designated partners in the LLP's interest using their assets if required. I had no liability for any loss beyond my capital contribution. Unquote. Many partners have noticed that the original agreement did not contain the same wording. The wording in the agreement was, and I quote again, "The losses of the LLP, including loss of capital, if any, will be borne and paid by the designated partners in the LLP's interest. The assets of the designated partners will be pledged against these losses," unquote. So some of the partners are alleging that by signing the affidavit, you are making them liable to a complete capital loss in the worst case. Something which was not mentioned in the original agreement. What do you have to say to that? To this, the relevant portion of the dialogue with Rituraj was quite short, and Rituraj said that there is nothing to worry here. For those partners who are worried about this line in the affidavit because it is differing from the original clause 2.6 of the LLP agreement, they can change the line in the affidavit to exactly that which is contained in the LLP agreement to their satisfaction. That answer to me seemed reassuring for all the partners who were worried about the liability clause which they were fearing was making them liable for the loss of their entire capital. So you can change the line and pick it up from the LLP agreement and put it in the affidavit. I then proceeded to my next question, which was, let's now discuss some critical information that needs to be filled into the affidavit. Let's begin by section 4A, amounts transferred to the LLP. This requires the LLP name, date of transfer, the amount, and the bank used. This is quite onerous for the partner because he or she may have used several transactions and might have completely lost track of the same. Can Growpital provide help to such partners by providing the information it must already be having for the same? Or can the partner simply mention that they agree with the information that Growpital has so that they don't have to dig out the individual transactions and the bank statements? The answer from Rituraj was, so two issues. Let us address the first part first. It'll be very difficult for me as an individual person right now to help you out with the information for all the 5,000 people involved. As you have correctly said, there will be multiple transactions. So multiple transactions into 5,000 would be a very huge amount of the numbers in the transactions there. It is easier for the investor part that they should find out at their own level because it'll be the right thing to do because you are showing the transaction which you have done. All this is needed for proper verification. That's the first part. The second part, which you said that if the partners can simply agree that what Growpital has claimed as transactions, that should not be the right thing to do because you don't know what I've claimed. So it cannot be a generic thing. It is just my suggestion, but I'm not caught upon it. But maybe the people can take certain legal advice over it. But the right thing would be to be mentioning clearly the transactions which you have made. Because I'm also not aware of this answer at this point of time. But my suggestion would be to not just mention that you agree with the transactions which Growpital has. So Rituraj asserted that he cannot help you with the transactional information and he suggests that you mention the transactions. But it did seem open to the possibility subject to your own legal advice to mention simply in the affidavit that you agree with the transactions information which Growpital has, although that was not his recommendation. My next question was similar. Similarly, in section 4B, the withdrawal details are required which might equally be cumbersome to locate. Can you provide some help to those partners in a similar manner, or they can mention simply that they agree with the details that Growpital has? The answer from Rituraj was exactly like earlier for section 4A. He cannot help with the transactional information and he suggests mentioning all the details but subject to the legal advice of your own. You could mention simply in the affidavit that you agree with the information which Growpital has, although that was not his recommendation. Then I asked him a trickier question, which was posed to me by some partners, and that was, specifically for the withdrawal details, should anyone choose to mention the details, what about the profit payouts that were credited to the Growpital account, also known as a software wallet on the website, but not withdrawn to the bank? How to show them in the affidavit? The answer from Rituraj was the following with an example. Let's say the payout in my wallet was of 100 rupees. Which are present in my wallet. Let's say 50 rupees were withdrawn to the bank and 50 rupees remained in the wallet. So you will be mentioning it clearly in the affidavit that I've received a payout of 100 rupees. I've withdrawn only 50 rupees out of it. And these are the transactions proofs in the bank account for the withdrawn amount. So in a sense, Rituraj says that mention the full payout amount as present in your wallet in a sentence in the affidavit, then mention how much total you have withdrawn to the bank and simply provide the transaction details against those. My next question was, what happens if any partner provides erroneous information in the affidavit for transactions, not fraudulently, but due to a human mistake, and that information does not match with what Growpital has on its own records. The summary of the answer from Rituraj was, at some point of time, some cross-checking will be done by somebody. If there's anything erroneous found, he doesn't know what process will be followed. Maybe a resubmission could be attempted, but he is not clear on this at the present moment. For the moment, we should simply begin with the exercise of submitting the affidavit with all the information. I went on to ask him if he plans to provide a website where partners can find their details of transactions to eliminate mistakes, to which he said there is no plan for a website, neither does he have the bandwidth to verify the correctness of the information in the submitted affidavits. Perhaps it is not right for Growpital to provide that information on transactions either, because that will defeat the purpose of cross-verification of the information which an investor claims to have versus what Growpital would submit to the authorities. So clearly, we as partners are on our own here for the moment. Then I dropped the bombshell of the question on him, and that was, now let's come to the section 6, tax declaration. Why is the tax information relevant for the purposes of the affidavit? Whether a person has filed his taxes or not is his personal decision. Why are you forcing the partners to disclose his tax details, and how is it even relevant as a proof of a partner's investment in Growpital? Many partners are worried that disclosures here can invite scrutiny from the income tax department, which would be an additional trouble for the investors. Rituraj said, and I have attempted to stick to the transcript here with minor editings. He said, okay, so first thing, it is not a forceful disclosure. It is a proof that you have been receiving profit payouts from Growpital. Otherwise, what that transaction will be called in your bank accounts or bank statements. You and me don't have like a loan agreement or something. It is not an interest provided to you. Okay, if you have not filed your ITR, that is okay, because that's a personal concern. If you have filed a wrong ITR, that is also your personal concern. I'm not aware. I'm not concerned about it. I'm only concerned that you are aware that this is the amount of money you have received and you should have filed ITR 3 out of it because we informed about it. If you have not filed the ITR, write the same thing there also. If you have not filed it, that is okay. You can just mention not filed. That is okay with me. But you should be putting in the right statement there that I've received this much amount of money as profit payouts. Or you can write that it is a profit payout and I don't want to disclose the ITR. Do mention about the ITR. That is not a problem. We can say that I don't disclose my ITR details. You can just simply write that I have received this much amount and it's supposed to be the profit payout from the LLPs. Nothing more than that. So that was the answer. So I take it that the ITR details are not mandatory to be mentioned in the affidavit. My next question was, it is unlikely that you would get the affidavits from all the partners before the next hearing date at SAT, that is the 25th of February 2026. How do you plan to use the affidavits submitted in the next hearing? Are you going to tell SEBI and SAT that you have so many affidavits with you, and how do you expect this to help Growpital's case? Rituraj answered, it is just for the purpose of that when SEBI submits a proposal, it is easier for like when the transactional payouts are being given, when the release of funds are there, it will be used for that. I am not sure that these affidavits will be used in the next hearing. It is not the case right now. Okay, but if required, we might disclose that we have already started collecting affidavits. So it looks like Growpital might use the submitted affidavits to impress upon SAT and or SEBI that the process of return or an order for the same should be accelerated given the proactive efforts of Growpital in collection of affidavits. My next question to him. Many partners are concerned that they would spend a lot of money and time in preparing and submitting this affidavit that you have sent the mail for. What if SEBI or SAT propose a completely different format? Will the exercise have to be repeated in that case? And if so, then what's the point of conducting the current exercise at all? Rituraj answered, I think the information which we have asked are sufficient enough to prove the amount which you have invested, the payout which you have received, your role in the LLP, and most importantly, your KYC, and what's the current status. Some people might have changed their addresses, some people might have changed their phone numbers or something. So these 4 things are definitely required for SEBI to execute the payouts and all. So effectively, Rituraj is saying implicitly that there is possibly nothing more that SEBI could eventually ask beyond the information being collected in the affidavit. My next question was, many partners have argued that everybody had used DGO to sign the agreements, and you have the details of all the partners and their contributions notarized already. Is that not sufficient to prove to SEBI who the investors are and what is their capital contribution, and if so, then why this affidavit exercise? Rituraj answered, interestingly, that DGO letter proves that you have signed a consent letter to become a partner in the LLP. That's true. The consent letter and the agreements are between you and us. But how the third party will know that you have signed this agreement or not? This is how the things function. For example, if in any of the scenarios, if two people are in agreement and when the plea or if any kind of dispute arises, you need to prove that you have signed something and that you have entered into this agreement. You are mentioning the same thing in your affidavit, that I've signed this letter. I've become a partner in the agreement. That's a proof that you are a partner here. That's a proof that you are a real person here. I've given the statement. You've also, again, given a statement on affidavit there. That's how the cross-checking happens. So essentially, Rituraj is saying that you are signing the affidavit to assert that you were indeed the person who signed the DGO agreement for cross-verification by the third party. I then asked the following question. What happens if a partner does not file this affidavit at all? Further, what happens if nobody files this affidavit or very few file this affidavit? To which Rituraj answered, I don't know. At this stage, nothing will happen. But when the court order comes in and if the affidavits are not there at the time of the release of the funds, it will be difficult for SEBI to release the funds to those people who have not filed the affidavit, because how will they know that they are real people or not? I then quickly asked Rituraj how many affidavits he had already received, and he answered that he had received around 100 affidavits so far. He further urged the people to send not only the physical copies but also the scanned copies for ease of handling and submission to authorities when required. I then asked Rituraj the only question which he allowed me to ask beyond the topic of affidavits. The question was, many partners have complained that in October 2024, you sent a mail saying that the audit of Growpital is not done due to financial crunch, so everyone should file amended ITR 3 to show that profits are not taxable. This was done after the due date of 31st of September 2024 for filing the ITR 3, so people had to pay a fine of Rs 5,000. Partners also claimed that they were fined for the unaudited company. So the partners are saying that the process you explained for ITR 3 filing was more damaging to the investors. What do you have to say to these partners? Rituraj answered the following. So first thing, we never sent a mail to amend the ITR. It has been always informed that ITR 3 has to be filed, but for this time, because we have not filed our audited financials, it was the most relevant thing for all the partners to show these partner drawings from the LLP as advanced profit payouts, paid from the LLPs. This was only informed there, and I don't know why partners have received these penalties and all, because I'm not sure about the numbers, also that how many partners have received the penalties. The people whom I know, they have not received such kind of penalties because they have filed their ITRs in the most promising way possible and they have not received any penalty. For courtesy's sake, I then asked him the following question as a conclusion. I recall via your earlier interviews that you were under severe depression when SEBI effectively shut down the business of Growpital. You seem to have bounced back. We see you active on LinkedIn. We see you giving interviews. There has been a newborn in the family. How's life for you these days, and what is your medium to long-term goals in life? Rituraj answered, see, I've accepted this fact that my days are not of 24 hours now. My days are only of 20 hours because approximately some or the other time I dedicated to the matter which is already in hand from Growpital. But I've been lucky enough, maybe I should use this word, that I've done the farming part, or the farms were still there and people have been approaching me to give them guidance and you can say help or support them in establishing their agri-business. Maybe I still hold the founder stature of Zeta Farms, but I'm not in the execution and the operations of it. I'm giving guidance and consultancy to people who want to have their own agri-business set up. I must not name it, people can find it. In general, he seemed balanced and confident and humble, not arrogant in his answers. I wanted to ask him about the status of the receivables of 32.5 crores and his plans to return the balanced capital all the way till 192 crores. but he declined to answer those questions in this interaction. So here we are. I'm not entirely sure if this was helpful, but I thought of publishing it to you guys. The next hearing date of 25th of February 2026 is approaching fast and is now less than a month away as I record this on the Republic Day of India in 2026. Let's hope something good comes out of the hearing. You can count on me to be there. That reminds me, I have to book the flight tickets. Do subscribe therefore and do press the thanks button. For the moment, this is Prashant signing off.